In 2024, a major American hospital system switched off a machine for 5 days. To replace it, roughly 60 people had to walk a combined 1,368 miles. They took 2.6 million steps carrying blood and laboratory samples through corridors, by hand, just to keep the hospital operating. The machine they were replacing was not a robot. It was not an autonomous vehicle. And it was definitely not artificial intelligence. It was a network of pneumatic tubes, capsules fired through pipes using air pressure, a technology that was already carrying mail beneath London in 1863. Today, while surgeons use robotic instruments and laboratories analyze DNA, hospitals still depend on plastic canisters disappearing into holes in the wall. At Stanford, one published count put the number at roughly 7,000 trips every day. So why has one of the most advanced environments on Earth failed to replace a machine from the Victorian age? The answer is not that hospitals are trapped in the past. It is that this relic solves a problem the digital world still cannot. And the moment you understand that problem, the tubes stop looking old. Stand near a hospital tube station, and the process looks almost too simple. A nurse, pharmacist, or technician places a blood sample, medication, or document inside a cylindrical carrier. The carrier is sealed. A destination is entered. A door closes. Then, whoosh, the capsule vanishes. Behind the wall, pressure pushes it forward or a vacuum pulls it back. Junctions redirect it. Control systems manage traffic. The carrier accelerates through a hidden network until it reaches another station, sometimes several buildings away. At the University of Virginia, the system supports approximately 4,000 transactions a day. About 90% of them are samples traveling to the clinical core laboratory. But the air is only the visible, or rather, audible part of the story. UVA's network also relies on connected control devices, servers, monitoring workstations, software, authentication, backups, and people who understand how all of it fits together. System administrator Joey Bailey helped replace its server, add a backup server, and automate nightly backups. Michael Light, Ray Moton, Chris Fox, and Del Thorne maintain the physical machinery, clear blocked carriers, replace traffic control equipment, and keep the network moving. This is not an antique pipe with a fan attached. It is Victorian physics governed by modern software. The original problem was not medical. 19th century cities were growing faster than information could move through them. A message might arrive by train and then lose precious time waiting for a person to carry it across crowded streets. In London, the Pneumatic dispatch company built an underground system that used huge fans to move mail. Trials between Euston Station and central sorting offices began in 1863. The railway did not last. It failed to reduce delivery times enough to justify the network, and it closed in 1874. That should have been the warning. Pneumatic delivery was clever, but only valuable when the object inside the carrier was urgent enough, small enough, and moved often enough. For ordinary communication, electricity won. The telegraph, telephone, fax, email, and internet progressively removed the need to transport the message itself. But a hospital has a different problem. You can digitize a patient's test result. You cannot digitize the blood that must be tested. You can send a prescription electronically. You cannot email the medication to the patient's room. Hospitals became one of the rare places where information moved into the digital age, but the physical evidence behind that information still had to travel. And that created the perfect habitat for a technology the rest of the world was abandoning. One of the people who understood this early was Dr. Henry Plummer. Born in Minnesota in 1874, Plummer was fascinated by mechanical devices and originally wanted to become an engineer. He studied medicine instead, joined the Mayo Clinic in 1901, and eventually applied an engineer's mind to the organization of healthcare. Plummer helped develop a unified medical record system based on a radical idea for the period. A patient's clinical information should belong to the whole medical group, not remain isolated with one doctor. But sharing records created a physical problem. Paper histories had to move between the clinic and St. Mary's Hospital. His solution included an underground pneumatic tube system. When Mayo's Plummer building opened in 1928, pneumatic transport helped specialists share records and work as one integrated practice. That distinction matters. For Plummer, the tube was not a gadget. It was part of a new operating system for medicine. The building, the records, the people, and the transport network were designed around the same goal: get the right information to the right person without making the patient wait for the institution to catch up. Modern hospital networks make those early systems look like toys. In 2020, Duke University Hospital reported that its two main inpatient pharmacies sent around 4,000 prescriptions through pneumatic tubes on a regular day. Clinical pharmacist Stephanie Chang was one of the people feeding medication into 138 stations, connected by nearly 10 miles of pipe. Matt Kelm, Duke's associate chief pharmacy officer, called the system their lifeline. Bill Cole had already worked with Duke's network for 32 years. He watched it evolve, including an upgrade that added express lanes capable of moving as many as 6 carriers at once. Cole compared the layout to a road system: smaller neighborhood routes feeding into interstates. That is a useful way to see it. A large pneumatic network is a private subway for physical information. Michigan Medicine's system is even more startling. 60,000 feet of 6-inch tubing linking hospitals, a cardiovascular center, a cancer center, laboratories, and a blood bank. Its 6,000 carriers travel at about 20 feet per second and collectively transport roughly 30,000 pounds a day. And unlike a human courier, the network does not need to wait for an elevator, navigate a crowded hallway, or remember which laboratory entrance to use. It has one job, one map, and almost no wasted motion. The true value of infrastructure is often invisible until it disappears. In May 2024, Michigan Medicine shut its pneumatic system down for 5 days so the network could be upgraded for a new hospital pavilion. The specimens still had to reach pathology. Blood products still had to move from the blood bank to operating rooms and patient floors. So Administrative Laboratory Manager Mary Taco coordinated a human replacement. About 60 staff members and additional temporary workers became runners. Between May 6 and May 11, they recorded approximately 2.6 million steps. Together, they walked 1,368 miles, roughly the distance from Ann Arbor to Miami. Temporary staff member Caitlin Smith alone logged 162,561 steps, or just over 71 miles. Think about what this experiment accidentally revealed. The tube network does not merely save a nurse a short walk. It quietly removes an enormous transportation burden from the hospital every day, while allowing medical staff to remain where their skills matter most. When the system went silent, its workload became visible as 60 moving bodies. But speed creates a problem. Inside a carrier, a blood sample does not glide gently. It accelerates, turns, brakes, and sometimes experiences sharp impacts. In 2019, researchers Christopher Farnsworth, Daniel Weber, James Kreckler, Melissa Boudelier, Nancy Bartlett, and Anne Granowski studied hospital tube routes using accelerometers and blood samples. Their data logger recorded forces as high as 22 gram. They also found meaningful day-to-day variation on the same route. 2 routes were predicted to raise levels of an enzyme called lactate dehydrogenase by at least 20%, and patient data showed a similar increase. That matters because physical stress can damage blood cells, a process called hemolysis, and potentially distort certain laboratory results. So the same machine that delivers a sample faster can, on an unsuitable route, reduce the value of the sample it delivers. This is why hospitals do not simply install pipes, increase the pressure, and hope for the best. Routes must be tested. Carriers must be packed correctly. Sensitive or hazardous materials may be excluded. Performance has to be monitored. The machine survives not because it is crude, but because hospitals learned where simplicity ends. Air can provide the motion. Only careful engineering and laboratory validation can provide trust. And this is where the story changes. We often talk about innovation as replacement. The new machine defeats the old machine. Software eliminates paper. Automation eliminates walking. The future arrives, and the past is removed. But pneumatic tubes reveal another kind of progress. Sometimes the old mechanism is not the obsolete part. Sometimes everything around it is. The 19th century tube carried mail because mail was the fastest form of information available. Once messages became electronic, that purpose disappeared. The hospital tube carries something different, the part of medicine that cannot become data yet. Blood before it becomes a result, a drug before it becomes a treatment, a physical object that matters in one location and is urgently needed in another. No faster computer can erase that distance. So hospitals did not preserve the original system unchanged. They wrapped a simple physical principle in sensors, routing logic, servers, backup systems, maintenance procedures, and medical safeguards. The air pressure is old. The institution built around it is not. That is why this 160-year-old idea remains difficult to replace. A useful successor would have to move thousands of small objects through a complex building, avoid public corridors, operate around the clock, deliver to precise destinations, integrate with hospital workflows, and remain economical enough to install at scale. There are newer alternatives for some jobs. Robots can carry larger loads. Digital records eliminate paper. Human couriers remain essential for items that should never enter the tubes. But for the narrow task of moving a small, urgent, physical object between fixed points, a sealed carrier in a dedicated pipe is still remarkably hard to beat. Not because it is perfect, because its limitations are understood. Not because nobody invented anything newer, because newer has not made the underlying problem disappear. The next time you see a plastic carrier vanish into a hospital wall, remember what is hidden behind that ordinary moment. A failed Victorian mail experiment. A doctor who wanted to be an engineer. Pharmacists sending thousands of prescriptions. Technicians clearing routes no patient will ever see. Laboratory scientists measuring violent accelerations to protect a single tube of blood. And, when the system stops, dozens of people walking more than 1,000 miles to take its place. Progress does not always look like replacement. Sometimes progress is an old idea becoming so useful and so reliable that the future is built around it. This is running on relics, the hidden old systems the modern world still cannot live without. Subscribe, because the next machine may look obsolete too right up until the moment it stops.